Hi, so we're at our Blackboard announcement page, which looks very familiar to you, I know. And if we go over here and click on Jack and Jill Parallel, the entire Jack and Jill lesson will be there. And I know that you've already looked over this, remembering that art holds a mirror up to nature, that literature is art, and that you're required to look at the written art and see a reflection. So right now you might be saying Jack and Jill is ridiculous. Let me just tell you there's a little history behind it. It actually has to do with the beheading of King John. It has a lot to do with history and politics. And in the 14 and 1500s, people who had political views that didn't want to get disemboweled or hung or have their heads chopped off if caught, created nursery rhymes to get their points across. And one reason they did that is because if something rhymes, it's easier to remember. So that was one way that people who had political views that were against the government could get their points across, specifically to people who were commoners, I guess you would say, because commoners didn't go to school, they didn't know how to read, they did not know how to write, and so this was another reason that people who had political ideas or political concerns would use nursery rhymes to get their points across, and they used symbolism. Jack and Jill in this political commentary are not Jack and Jill at all. It's referring to the people and to King John. We've got Ring Around the Rosy, Pockets Full of Posies. That's all political, as well as is Little Bo Peep Who Lost Her Sheep. And if you're interested in the history behind those, go for it, Google it. But right now, what I'm going to do is tell you what I'm going to do. If you look here, Jack and Jill attachments of examples, and here is the video that I already just did for you. There are 4 attachments to open if you don't have your booklet, or even if you do. If you have your book, turn to page 64, and you're going to find the explanation of a parallel analysis. I'm clicking on this, and you'll see that it's horrendously large. I've tried to do what I can do to make it smaller, and it's just not working. So hang with me here. The literary parallel or mirror analysis scoop. So what you're doing is you are, let me just read this for you. I think it's pretty clear. The purpose, the reason for the parallel analysis is to allow you the opportunity to read, learn, and know a piece of art, in this case, a piece of written art. Then you observe and see a reflection of that art. The art will mean different things to different people. It is your job to see a reflection, which is a parallel within the literature. Some types of literary parallels are personal. You see yourself or a part of yourself, your family, or your friends reflected or mirrored in the literature. Societal. You see a specific part of society mirrored within the literature. Religious. You see religion reflected within the literature. Historical. You see an historical event or time in history mirrored within the literature. Racist. You see racism or racism in general reflected within the literature. And misogynistic, you see the hatred of women, an event of a hatred of women or women in general within the literature. Anti-Semitic, you see hatred of the Jewish race and or the Jewish religion reflected within this literature. Political, you see politics in general or a specific political event reflected within this literature. Other specific parallels reflected within the broad parallels list above can include war, eating disorders, child abuse, another piece of art, culture, banning or censoring of thoughts and expectations, and there we have it. Let me give you an example of an historical parallel. After I read the apartment house paragraphs, I realized that I didn't tell you that it was a post or after World War II poem, and that Mr. Raftery was saying something about history. And you didn't even really need to know that because many of you compared it to yourselves. But now knowing about World War II, the word cells has a whole different connotation. Some people wrote about apartment house reflecting a prison by looking at the word cell and looking up at the bees and how all the prisoners are dressed the same and look the same and do the same thing day after day after day. That is a specific parallel. A few of you actually said that you thought that Raftery was talking about apartment houses and how human beings live, and you were right in a sense, but in this specific parallel here, I need you to get very specific. I don't want to know about people, I want to know about what people. So what I'm going to do right now is stop this blathering, save it, and send it, and this is video number 2. And so here we go.